Hi everybody and welcome. Thank you for making time to come tonight. It's so nice to see faces. All the faces are from members actually of Central and Eastern Sydney Allied Health Network. Just a little plug about the network. It's an organisation, member organisation of the Central and Eastern Sydney Primary Health Network. And we're a not-for-profit organisation with a membership at the moment a bit over 100 people, 110 or so, and hopefully growing. And we advocate and support allied health at the PHN level and at really wherever we can reach out to support and advocate for allied health, we do that. We've got some board directors here today. We've got 6 board directors on CESARN. Susie Petrozzi's just here, raise your hand. Roger Enkel, Chu, and Carlene's not here, and Trent, another board director. And I'm really excited to present our speakers for tonight. We've heard a lot from members, particularly over the last 2 years, where COVID had affected their practices and practice viability. And we wanted to provide some sort of facilitation or training with some experts in the field of primary health care. And I heard Jerry speak. He's one of our presenters tonight. Jerry Kennard, I heard him speak on a podcast some time ago on the Health Tech podcast. It's a great podcast. And you sparked my interest. You were talking about primary healthcare and the need for support for not just GPs, but allied health. And then I reached out and thankfully you pulled together a team of 3 other experts here tonight. And you formed a collective. And I'd like to just go to the next slide, actually, and just introduce the speakers tonight. We've got Michelle Taylor, who will speak first. She's from Marketing Practices. Elena Bytch, she's from Prism Accounting. Abby Yuganathan, she's from HealthcareLink, and Jerry Kennard from Evoke Projects. Each speaker's going to speak for about 10 to 15 minutes. And if you can hold your questions, we'll have about half an hour at the end, a panel discussion. So please write your questions down wherever you can and ask the panel at the end. There'll be a trove of wisdom, I'm sure. So if I can just present our first speaker, which is Michelle Taylor. Just put your hands together. Thank you.
I could just hold it. It's only 10 minutes. I feel like this is the speed dating kind of summary of marketing. So I have been working in marketing for nearly 25 years. So I feel like it is almost a lifetime of work for me. And really I wanted to share with you some information about marketing your practice. Can I get a raise of hands of who actually feels, kind of comfortable marketing their practice and feels like you've got everything down pat, you feel comfortable with social media, comfortable with everything that you're doing, attracting and retaining your patients? Who feels comfortable? 1, 2 in the room, so not that many really.
What about comfortable but I don't like it?
Comfortable but I don't like it. That's a good. that is a good response. So what I wanted to really talk to you about today, I nerd out on marketing stuff. It is a passion of mine. It's something that I really love to get into the psychology of why people make decisions and why they will choose one practitioner over another, and what really encourages them to move forward and actually proceed with a treatment, or actually encourages them to move along and make an appointment with a practitioner. So I'm just going to move forward to the next slide. I think they're all here. Often I put up this slide and it can sometimes be a little bit confronting to think about your patients are thinking a lot of things before they experience your services and before they make that initial step to feel comfortable making that appointment, particularly that first appointment to come and see you. They're thinking, will they believe me? Will they judge me? Do they look kind or nice or experienced or professional? Do I like them? What do other people think of them? Can they help me? Are they any good? I know this feels a little bit intimidating to think about it from this perspective. Can I trust them? Will I feel comfortable seeing them? Will they rush me out the door? All of these things are going on in their minds before they feel comfortable making an appointment to come and see you. And to really nail your marketing and to nail your messaging, it is not about advertising. It's not about getting Facebook ads right. It is not about getting your website even to the top ranking Google search. Marketing nowadays is all about connecting with people within the local community, and it's about reaching people and helping them answer these questions so that they feel comfortable making an appointment to come to see you. Now, having worked in marketing for the past 2 decades, I have seen things come and go. When I started marketing, the internet was kind of just, you'd have a website, but it was static and you just have your phone number and a few other bits and pieces on there. But obviously things have changed, and with the rise of social media, we have never been in a position where marketing has been as cost effective, and you've never been in a position to be able to get your message directly from you and your practice to your potential patients.
That's all good. Sorry, thank you.
Excellent. We've never been in the position where you have been able to reach people directly in the palm of their hand. Now, the current statistics show that, rightly or wrongly, and I have my personal thoughts about social media, but I also have my marketing thoughts about social media. Rightly or wrongly, people are spending, on average, Australians right now are spending 1 hour and 57 minutes on social media every single day. Now, that's the average. So there's some people spending a lot more time on social media, and there's some people spending a lot less time on social media, but on average. So we have this amazing ability to connect with people organically and build relationships with people in a professional sense that enables us to build trust and to establish yourselves as the rightful healthcare leaders that you are, to help people trust you and to highlight their pain points so that they feel comfortable coming in to see you and making that initial step to book an appointment to come in and see you. So marketing has really changed quite a lot. We have moved away from mass marketing and we have moved towards mass personalisation. And the great thing is, particularly for allied health and any small business, is that it's never been cheaper to do it. Back in the olden days, I say maybe 10 years ago, we used to have to pay for local advertising or yellow pages ads and those types of things. We don't have to do that anymore. Social media is free to do. If you have a good content strategy on social media, it is free to do that. So we've never been in a position with everything else in your practice, with costs rising. Marketing costs are pretty much the only thing in your practice that aren't rising right now. So it's a huge opportunity. Now, when I talk about content, and I get it, you're probably nailing your marketing, but it can feel like a bit of a chore to do it. And I understand that, because we are time poor, and you certainly didn't go to university and study and be the master of your skill and your profession to, create videos for social media. I understand that. But you are a business owner, and you do need to run a business, and that's really what we're all talking about tonight. And if you can create content that is going to attract patients in a beautiful flow of patients that keep coming to your practice, you know, that is a worthwhile exercise to keep running your business. Now, when I talk about connection content, it is content that is going to answer some of those questions that I showed in the first slide, but it's also going to help position you as a leader within your community. It's educational content. It's helping people with solving their problems. Now, you're talking to people every single day about their issues. It takes 5 minutes to brainstorm. What are the 5 things I've been asked today from patients? Brainstorm those down, and you can turn that into social media. If one person's asking that information, it's likely to be there's a whole bunch of people that have those same pain points. Inspirational content. People love being inspired on social media. That's really sticky content. You're going to get people interacting and engaging with content like that. Now, when we produce content on social media, we can almost also email it to our database. Now, I know you don't want to spam your people. I get that. You're not spamming your database when you are offering value to them. If you're spamming your database and wanting appointments and trying to offer them some kind of discount, or you're trying to upsell them in some kind of way, that is spam. Absolutely, that's spam. But if you're educating them, if you're solving a problem of theirs, let's just say, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head because I just dealt with this at home today. If you're telling me how I can get my kids to remember to brush their teeth during school holidays because we're out of routine right now, I'm all ears. Like, I'm a busy parent and I do not have the time to be able to do that. So if you can give me a quick tip to do that, like, bring it on. I will open your emails. It's just the little things that make your patients' lives easier. And if you can think about those, then you really need to focus on that kind of content. That is going to be sticky content, and people are going to remember you for it, and you're building up that trust. Entertaining content. You're not a comedian. I get that. That's not what I'm talking about. But if you guys are in the situation where we had Crazy Socks for Docs Day recently, take a photo of the Crazy Socks, have a laugh, you know, be a bit lighthearted about it. That's what I'm talking about in terms of entertaining content. There's informative content, there's opportunistic content. Mrs. Jones had a great experience at your practice. She bought your team a lovely tea cake from down the road. Take a photo of that, you know, celebrate those kinds of things. And then, of course, there's holidays and observances that come up all the time. This is a quiet month for holidays and observances because it's the end of the financial year. But as soon as we hit the next, we're nearly there. We've got to get moving. As soon as we hit the next financial year, they'll all come back again. Now, my last slide is really just to summarize that relationship marketing is really a strategy that focuses on building those long-term relationships with potential and existing patients. When you foster that trust and loyalty and satisfaction, you'll actually increase the patient lifetime value. And that's really where the profitability comes from. It's where you get great patients that come back over and over again. They're patients that will stay and they will amplify the message of your practice on social media, particularly when people are looking for recommendations. They'll be the ones in there saying, yeah, you've got to go to this practice. They're amazing. I love them. You know, they're going to be your advocates, and you need those advocates to do your marketing for you. So when you nail this, that's what happens, and that's how you get that on social media. So that is a quick summary. I'm more than happy to talk some more in our panel discussion, and I'll certainly hang around at the end if anybody's got any particular questions about all of that as well. Who's next?
Thanks, Peter.
Hi everyone, my name is Elena Bytch. I'm the owner of the specialist accounting practice. we are focusing on medical professionals, dental professionals, and allied health professionals. First of all, okay, wait,
just the arrow. Yep, that's it.
Okay, and I know as an accountant, I know how badly some of the health practices were impacted by COVID. But one of the positive things that COVID brought to us is actually that we've seen some development, some major development in cloud technology. And we've seen major adoption of cloud technology as well, and that includes health practices as well. Now you have an opportunity to really harness this technology to bring some operational efficiency in your practice. If you're running a practice, you probably have two major pieces of software in your practice. One is your practice management software, and another one is your accounting software. So each of them form different functions. They have a little bit of overlap, but primary purpose of practice management software is to look after operational aspects of your practice, and the accounting software is to perform some financial, some recordings and produce certain reports for your accountant. As I said, there is a bit of overlap between the two. So in the old days, what you used to do, you probably had your practice management software and accounting software installed in your desktop computer, and they would be completely isolated pieces of software, and they would not communicate with one another. So you would probably give your bookkeeper certain reports from practice management software, and the bookkeeper would enter them manually to your accounting software. And then your accountant would probably try to reconcile everything. And sometimes, you know, the data would just not match. And yeah, they would have a hard time reconciling everything. So nowadays, you have access to this choice of cloud technology for practice management software. And we also have accounting software, which is on the cloud. I deliberately omitted the name of the software, but we all know what we're talking about. So how do you achieve this operational efficiency? So your practice management software is likely able to be integrated with your accounting software. So, for example, when you produce an billings or invoicing practice management software, the data will automatically be pushed through to your accounting software, and it will minimize or completely eliminate human input, manual input from your practice manager or bookkeeper. So it will automatically create certain entries in your accounting software, and that will create certain efficiency and minimize manual input. So your practice management staff or yourself, if you are a single practitioner, can focus on something else, on more value-added activities rather than performing this manual inputs. Saying that, you still can't eliminate manual inputs completely, and it's really important that your accounting software is actually set up correctly for you to be able to perform reports which you can rely on. So it's really a good idea to have your accountant set up your chart of accounts, because depending on type of your practice, you might need a specific chart of accounts to record certain revenues, certain expenses, and a lot of people get confused about owners' distribution accounts, which can be tricky for practice owners. So talk to your accountant about having your accounting software set up properly, and have chart of accounts, bank rules for yourself, set up your payroll correctly, and you can probably ask them to customize your reports as well. So you can produce certain financial outputs as well as management reports, which you can access in real time and use it for making your business decisions. Second aspect I want to talk about is setting up your practice for success. And now it's really a good time to think about your plans for the new financial year, because tomorrow is the last day of last financial year. Now we are entering a new financial year. So now it's a really good idea to evaluate your performance and set targets for the new financial year. And I'm sure everyone in this room wants one single thing from their practice to increase profitability. So some of you might actually have certain results, certain figures in mind. But if you don't, it's okay. It's good idea to actually go through the budgets and set certain goals for yourself. And the first thing you would want to look at when you set up your performance target is the actual results, your historical results for the last financial year. So you have your starting points. This will be your starting points. And now you look at your start point and look at your desirable results, and you have an idea what you need to do to actually achieve those results. So the second step of the process would be to identify your areas of improvement. So you can focus on two things to improve your profitability. You can focus on revenue, and you can focus on your expenses. And a lot of people think about, okay, how do I cut expenses? It's just, I guess, natural thing to do when you have considerable expenses. But I think the first focus would be on increasing your revenue, because this is something that drives your practice. And you can increase revenues in multiple ways. You can actually try to increase your prices. And if you are charging private fees, you can try to increase your prices, or you can try to increase number of patients you see. And depending on which way you go, you can either try to improve your patient experience.
Maybe I would like to ask a question.
We've got a panel at the end, Brendan.
Oh, can we ask?
Yeah, can you save it?
Right, panel.
You need to write it down. Don't forget
No,
it.
you're right. Thank you, Brad.
So you can, I'll try to be quicker. I get you can improve your patient experience, promote your practice, try to maintain referral relationship, update your equipment, fit out to actually make your patients like your practice, or you can decrease expenses. And we talked about improving efficiencies. And once you identify the areas of improvement, the next step would be to actually set specific targets for your goals. And now there is what's called SMART principle for goal setting. The goals have to be specific, they have to be measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So you get your specific goals and concentrate on them, and make sure that your staff is actually able to achieve the goals. Now, the last slide is I'm going to talk about is doing financial health checks at the end of financial year. I think it's the ideal time to do it now. So first of all, you review your business structure and discuss it with your accountant, because sometimes when you start the practice, you might start as a sole trader, and you eventually grow, and you will employ other staff members, other people, other professionals, and sometimes the initial structure might not be appropriate for you anymore. You have to review your structure regularly to make sure it's appropriate for your situation. Secondly, discuss with your accountant certain tax incentives that might apply to your practice, and I can discuss it with you. If you have any questions, you can feel free to ask me about some incentives, but I listed some of them on the slide. The third point is you can't neglect your cash flow. And cash flow is not necessarily the same as profitability. You have to make sure that you have enough cash to pay your expenses. And there are certain ways you can actually smooth out your cash flows by either borrowing certain funds to finance certain large expenses, and you can try to defer payments of tax liabilities. There are multiple ways you can do it. And the last point, last but not least, is check your tax compliance. Again, you might not be a tax expert, but this is why we are here. We as accountants, we advise on certain tax issues as well. As an accountant, I can say that the common mistakes that practice owners are making is not paying enough superannuation contribution to their staff members. So paying them late or not paying enough. And it's not because they do it deliberately, it's because they just don't understand the requirements. Other than that, we see a lot of mistakes around GST payments, around GST. Yeah, you have to really understand when you have to charge GST, when you don't have to charge GST-free supplies, GST-able supplies, and it creates a lot of confusion. So another thing is that some practice owners, what they're doing, they set up an entity and they, for example, buy a car under the entity's name, and they provide this car for directors or owners for personal use, and that creates fringe benefit tax liability, and a lot of people just don't realize that. Obviously, there are points that you need to discuss with your accountant, and I'm going to hang around after this session. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Right,
thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, is it okay? My name's Appy, and I'm here representing HealthcareLink. We are a primary health dedicated online platform that gives its members the opportunity to attract talent and source talent for healthcare and medical centres nationally. So I'm here to cover topics practice culture as well as talent attraction. Before we attract the right talent into your practice, we've got to make sure the foundation's right, we've got the right culture going, we're building on something that's already working. When you've got it right, it's amazing. And when it's not quite right, it can be really detrimental to the growth of the business as well as staff retention. What's worse than good people leaving is bad people staying. So disgruntled employees or unhappy ones that don't quite leave but are not performing to their, optimal amounts. So we need to cultivate a strategy where the culture is one of the things that you do think about. Everyone would think about marketing, finance, legal aspects. You want to get it running, you want to get it up and going, but sometimes practice culture is one of the last things you think about when you start interacting with the team. So getting that right from the beginning is really important. So how do we go about creating this positive culture? Your vision and your goal and your purpose is in your mind, clearly. So we've got to be able to spread the word and share that vision with the team that you're trying to build. So that they're all aligned, they buy into it, and they are there committed to help you achieve your goal for the community as well as the practice. Position descriptions and roles and responsibilities clearly defined at the very beginning help them do that. It helps them stay in their lane. It helps them understand their role in this ecosystem, and they take ownership then of what's within their boundaries. No one's stepping into each other's zone, and they feel empowered that this is mine and I'm going to smash this out of the park every day that I come back to work. So position descriptions and roles and responsibilities, and a clear structure to be able to escalate things to when there is a query and something's ambiguous, take it into one person. Setting up a calendar of sorts, or a regular meeting where you are giving people awards and recognition and feedback. You don't have to wait for these meetings for feedback. Immediate feedback is always more appreciated as long as it's constructive. People want to do better when they are aligned to your goals. So immediate feedback is always great, but taking the time to then recognize and reward people for people going over their KPIs, going, out of their, going the extra mile, helping someone else once their work is done, things like that. When they get recognized for that, they really feel valued and they feel like they belong to the team. Other things that we can do to implement a great positive culture is to invest in their training. It doesn't have to be out of your pocket. So as long as you are aware that they want to grow and give them the time that they need, maybe, they could do it out of their own expense, but giving them the time to upskill shows that you're invested in their career growth, and happy for them to bring back those new skills and give them additional responsibilities, which is only going to be advantageous to your clinic moving forward. And the other thing, sorry, I forgot to mention, just with the awards and recognition and feedback, some time away from the practice in a social setting, if possible, is also great for team bonding, because they say when people laugh together, they actually open up a little bit more and share more information. And that's a little window into possible personal goals that they wouldn't normally talk to you about at work. So knowing that, someone's maybe relocating at some point, or education is taking them elsewhere, those windows into what's happening in their personal life will help you plan and think about, okay, well, if that does happen, what do I do with the team? Who else do I need to bring on in the event of someone moving on? So that's really great for open communication and team bonding, which is the two-way communication strategy. We need an environment where people feel safe and comfortable that whatever is running through their mind, they're able to take to somebody. And it could be good and bad. So innovation, ideas for improvement, as well as possibly something that's of concern that's affecting everybody at work. And there's a lot more things, small things that you can add to have this framework for culture. But what that does give you is engaged staff who are empowered and know their roles and how to execute that day in and day out. Longer retention with a team that sort of trust each other and believe that they're there for a reason. And you're basically building brand ambassadors. So whether they're going to their training courses or association events, they're always going to talk about how great their job is, right? And people are like, oh, where do you work? So they're just going out there and doing part of that marketing for you, being your brand ambassadors, which is going to help when you are ready then to do the recruitment drive. Okay, so let me see. Okay, which brings me to talent attraction and retention. And there's so many different strategies we can employ and get really creative about talent attraction. I've put a few up there that we can go through now, and we can take questions later as well. So when people contact us and they want some help, I said, oh, so what have you done so far? Oh, I've put up an ad, I'm just waiting to see what happens. Yes, so don't stop doing that, do that, if that has worked for you in the past, so you're going back to something you know. But also casting the net wider, getting a lot more eyeballs on the message, using how Michelle's using social media and marketing for patient attraction. A lot of what she's doing or talking about also goes the other way in talent attraction. So the crazy soft steak shows your culture a little bit. We get together and we have a bit of fun. Awards and recognition, getting one of your team members to do a testimonial and talk about how great it is to work there, and adding that to a job ad. So some platforms allow you to add photos and videos to job ads. So that's a great way to cast the net wider. Have a careers page on your own website using really good keywords for Google search, so that will organically bring people in, knowing that you're looking to expand your team. So there's lots of options to really cast that net wide. And talking about job boards, so yes, it's important to get the job up. I would encourage you to explore niche job markets where they've been built specifically for the healthcare industry or specifically to cover the allied health profession type that you're in. So a platform that's used functionality and features to help narrow down on the APRA level, or if you're looking at exercise physiologists on the ESFA registration level, and then a physiotherapist, but then also has a subspecialty in sports injuries or musculoskeletal. So be able to really filter down and find that target audience and put your ad to them is where you would get quality candidates, maybe fewer, but quality. And if they're not right for you in that moment, guess what? You're getting to build a pool of people who will at some point in the future be able to work for you, and you've already got those contact details. So exploring niche job markets, I think it's a great idea to access talent. Investing in marketing, I always come behind Michelle, and I feel like I can't repeat what she said. But recruitment sits somewhere between HR and marketing. It's somewhere in the middle because you need both of those functions to be really successful at it. And it's one of those functions that keeps running throughout the year, even when you're not hiring, because you want to be in people's spaces, doing good things and really talking about the impact that you're making to the community that you're serving. So creating content about your growth, creating content about celebrations, creating content about charity work that you might be doing in the community, anything that's relevant and shows off what a great place you are to work at should be visible even when you're not hiring. Because that's when passive candidates will go, oh, I've seen that, they're really interesting. I think I might start thinking about a move, and they're following you. So they'll come to revisit all that content and go, you know, that really aligns with what I'm looking for next. And we'll be able to tap into that market, which is the don't stop hiring, right? And then you've got to write these outstanding job ads to be able to attract people. And, you know, there's no magic answer. You're only going to attract the people who resonate with what they're reading. So I've seen job ads that are like really short, condensed. But if you think about it, if you meet this person, you're going to spend a good half an hour talking to them, showing them around your practice, you know, telling them about your policies, showing them your appointment books and how busy you are. You can't do that on a static page that someone's reading, fair enough, but you've got to give yourself more than 4 lines to explain that. So, you know, the first thing they need to do is read the job and then decide that they don't want it. So how do you get them to click into it? You've got to have a really attractive title. If it's an occupational therapist job, I've seen a lot of jobs that just say occupational therapist, maybe adding the fact that it's pediatric caseloads, or maybe adding the reason why, you know, everyone else is fully booked, returning patients away. We're really struggling and want to help this community. Things that kind of speak to the why already in the title. And then in the detail, as much as you can. I mean, if you're just starting out now, you may not have a history that you can write about, but your vision for growth and your vision for why you're starting is great. If you are established, you can write a little bit about the history, the team size, your support staff, the earning potential, fit out and premises modern and well lit. I'm sure Jerry will take you through that. Yes, your reason for hire, because they want to know, are they really being called in to fill a gap? Because many times people are hired to help grow the business without the need there in that moment. So I've had examples where a dietitian's gone in and she's happy, she started, and she didn't realize that part of her KPI was to do business development and bring in clientele, bring in patients with her to help build this business. So that didn't quite work out because there was no clear communication at the front. But if you say, look, you know, you can establish yourself and you can build your own little business within this environment, that might speak to someone who's ready to venture out and do that, come away from someone's shadow and start on their own. So that's for the reason for hire is really important. details about surrounding areas and locations. I usually put this in because we try to help metro and rural. So if it's a little bit further out, you know, why would someone go there? Just try to highlight all the benefits and attractions and facilities available in some more rural locations. What you can offer, and again, bringing in that culture aspect, we're talking about training and support, and it's, you know, it's more than just the money, and sometimes the money is nowhere to be found, but people are moving for the dollar. So a range, if you can't quite put a number on it, maybe a range up to this much, it just gives them an idea, is it worth my time having a chat with them? And then what you're looking for in them. So again, qualifications, experience, but also tap into that personality aspect, which will tie back into the practice. So how do you word that? Are you someone that loves doing this? You know, put that question out to them. We can't say we want you to be a happy, fun-loving person who, but, you know, questioning the personality, does it speak to them? You know, are you passionate about helping elderly Australians do this? Whatever it is, if it speaks to them, then you're kind of getting an alignment, and you're going to be attracting the people that are right for your business in terms of work, but also culture. All right, guys, thank you. I might leave it at that. You didn't flag me, so very
Happy. And thank you, firstly, to John and Lauren and Bertha for having us here tonight, and thank you, Michelle and Elena. So, my name is Jerry Kennard. I'm the founder and CEO of Evoke Projects. So we design and create medical healthcare practices. But another aspect I'd like to talk about is that I'm also the founder of Practice Success Collective. So Practice Success Collective is a talent pool of experts that we created to help practice owners ultimately succeed in their practice. So to give you a bit of background and the passion behind this project that started 2 years ago, and Michelle has been on this journey with me from day one, which I'm very grateful for, there were so many business owners out there that were excellent in their field of healthcare, excellent in their knowledge of what they did, but when it comes to setting up a business or growing a business, there was gaps. And I thought, when we come to build a practice for a practice owner, whether that's an aspiring practice owner or an existing practice owner wanting to relocate or expand, how can we help these people set up the practice for success from day one? And it's so much more than just bricks and mortar, so much more than walls and carpet. And so that's where Practice Success came from. And I suppose, if you like, it was about the next slide. Yep. How can we create a holistic approach to building practices? And when we looked at it, it was the physical space is, yes, whilst you need a physical space to, unless you're a psychologist and do it all online, you need a physical space to run your practice and see your patients. Without the leadership, behaviours, strategies, all the things that we've been talking about tonight, Michelle's been talking about marketing, without attracting those patients in the door, without the right accounting structure, without the values and the vision and who you are, your DNA as a company, along with your systems and processes that Elena's been talking about, then the practice really isn't practice. So it's at the heart of every practice, and this goes back to probably our passion for culture and people from my perspective as a business owner, is the people, whether that's your team or whether that's your patients, should be at the heart of your practice. And is everything in your practice set up from day one with that in mind? So whether that's attracting the right patients, the right patient avatar from Michelle's perspective, or whether that's attracting top talent and retaining top talent, ultimately, without a holistic approach, it'll be almost impossible to succeed. And so from our point of view, we came to it that there was no point building a practice for practice owners that didn't have access to these other skills and experts that they needed in order to succeed. From a physical perspective, I always like the analogy, quite simple, quite graphic, of the plants. So we don't expect plants to thrive in an ordinary environment like the desert, nor should we expect our people, whether it be our teams or our patients, to thrive in an ordinary space. And when I talk about an ordinary space, I don't mean an expensive space, I don't mean a gold-plated space. It's about the aspects of emotional, what we call it emotional design. I mean, everyone would have heard of spatial design. When you design a practice, you need X amount of rooms, you need, this is the patient flow, this is how I want it set up. Design is so much more than just the walls, so much more than just the layout. It's what's that patient feel when they open that door. Every patient's on an emotional journey. So it comes down to, yes, the look and feel. Is there alignment? Is there connection between the website from a marketing perspective, from what they saw on social media to when they arrive at your practice? How do they feel when they walk in your practice? And it's so much more than just putting your brand and your logo all over the walls. You should be able to walk into a practice and feel like you're an XYZ practice without seeing logos. It should represent who you are as a practice and who you are as a team. So, and I think when Abby talks about attracting and retaining top talent, again, the physical space is not everything. I've seen a lot of very good cultures in okay environments, but having said that, to foster great culture, the environment does matter. So just this last slide, and I won't prolong it because I think there'll be lots of questions for these other three amazing experts. But when it comes to designing the ultimate practice, we use a framework that's based on the Well Building Standard. So again, this standard is not just about the physical space or the physical walls. It covers things like air quality, water quality, nourishment, light, movement. Some of these things we can, as designers, we can have a massive impact. Other things, it's more reliant on you as a practice owner setting up the systems and processes to get the best out of the space. So whilst we can make sure that the team have a space to cater to nourishment, we can't actually create the process or the behaviours around that. So probably a couple of things I would say that are the most relevant to you guys if you're looking to start a practice or set up your next practice. And it's probably, I hate to dwell on the negative, but it's some of the horror stories that we see, is around sound. So acoustics. I don't know if anyone's operated in a practice before where they can hear the person next door very clearly. And, the patient, if you're a patient, it's bad enough if you're the practitioner, but if you're a patient, that's not a great feeling. And some of these things there's certain things you can do later, but there's certain things in the construction of walls. So with acoustics, there's three key things to remember. There's the absorption of noise, so that can be applied later. There's noise that transfers through the wall, that can't be done later. So how your builder constructs your walls is of paramount importance because you cannot change it without a lot of expense. So it's about making sure you're talking to people that understand healthcare fit out. And there's some good providers out there. There's not just us. But I suppose my key point there for a key takeaway is if you're looking to build a practice, make sure you talk to someone that understands healthcare. And then the other aspect of acoustics is the transfer over the wall, so through the ceiling space. And a lot of people don't realise that there's so much noise. This ceiling tile here, for instance, the noise actually goes up and over. So it's about making sure that there's appropriate materials above the walls to ensure that there's no transfer of sound. So that's probably the number one thing. The other aspect I'd like to talk about, which is something that everyone can implement into their practice, and that's around mind. So the mind concept in the Well Standard talks about biophilic design. So biophilic design is basically our connection with nature. We have an innate connection with nature, whether we like it or not. Again, I love the analogy. Everyone would have had the experience of walking into a rainforest. What is the feeling? You can't change it. You just relax. And again, that's the same whether it's in your house, whether it's in your workplace. It's about those materials and those aspects of the finishes. And it could be as simple as pot plants. You know, we're not talking expensive finishes, but when it comes to designing your practice or taking your practice to another level, it's about implementing some of those things throughout the practice, and they're very simple to do. And again, it has an effect on how the patient feels when they walk in, but also the team. You know, I think in years gone by, we always thought healthcare had to be sterile. Yes, it does. Does it need to feel sterile? No, it doesn't. So that's the point, is that you can create amazing, welcoming, warm spaces that are sterile for healthcare requirements, but they don't feel sterile. I think that's it from me, short and sweet. More than happy to chat. It's not a sales gig tonight. This is about how can we help you guys set up your practices for success, whether that be marketing, whether that be attracting and retaining top talent, HR, accounting. And we do have, John doesn't mind, we do have a plug for Practice Success. We do have a talent pool of pretty much every aspect of expert that you want, you could need in your business, from legal to you name it, we've got it. So if there is a need that you have, that you're looking for someone that you'd like to be recommended to, we can help you.
All right, everyone, we're back again. I just want to thank all the 4 speakers, and now we can pepper them with some questions. And I think, Brendan, you've got the floor. You've got the first question. Finally.
I've got a whole bunch of questions. Oh, don't stop me now.
Just add
yes. Thanks for the presentation. They were really good, right? I enjoyed them very much. Look, issue about new graduates. I'm hearing lots of stuff about new graduates. People leaving the different health professions. What's the burnout? New graduates coming out, have a crack at it, and they, go off to work in Coles or whatever else like that. So what sort of strategies could you recommend to try and get a bit more longevity out of new graduates so they don't sort of leave their profession, but train so hard and we keep them in there, right? So any thoughts on that? That's my first question.
Okay. So what we're finding is graduates are coming out of university with 3 offers already in their pocket. So October comes, they're in the market, they've been given offers. December they graduate, January they're starting. There's a lot of shopping happening already at that stage. They are pushing back. So yeah, they're pushing back on offers and trying to, get a higher salary, and then they go in there, and the feedback we get when they go into a private clinic, for example, is that the senior staff there don't necessarily have the time to mentor them and give them that immediate feedback. So they're fresh. I mean, they've had placement experience, but they're coming into the workforce and looking for a more supportive environment. So private clinics can't always offer that. And mobile clinics and community work, they're kind of on their own again and having to bring back the clinical experience or use the phone to get that support. So I would say if there is a way for them to access support during their day in real time somehow, it's one of the concerns that we do hear from new graduates.
I'd just like to comment later. That was your first point around shopping around for the highest income.
Yes.
So I'm a private practitioner. I have 4 physiotherapy practices. And one of the things that I say to my new graduates is, I'm not going to offer you the most money, but I'm going to give you the most support. And I think it's a problem in our recruitment piece, but I don't know how, like, when someone else is saying to them, I'll give you 100 grand, I'm saying, I'm going to give you 70.
They'll go to that one and then come back to you when that doesn't quite work out. They'll reach back.
Sometimes they get 2 years out and they leave.
Yeah.
Or they get a year out and they go, well, I'm not dropping my salary. And I'm like, well, you're useless now because you don't know anything. I don't want you.
Yeah.
So it's a very difficult space, and I feel like there's a big gap in maybe the education piece of university where they're not explained that we are running small businesses, that if someone's offering a lot of money to someone with no experience, they're expecting something, which is generally a massive churn sort of situation.
Yeah, or the locations are not ideal, you know, it's in larger corporates and they get put in a location that's not close to home.
But I don't know how to, you know, that's almost an education piece.
Yeah, agree. Yeah.
Sorry.
Just on the note on new graduates, I just hired 3 of them. I think you have to talk to them. I think it's a different generation. They all about, I mean, I'm millennial, make money, be happy. That's not exactly their goals, you know. And I found that actually asking them, what are your actual goals? None of them said home ownership. It was other things. They actually said they want to find a hobby. I did this last night. I was shocked. A hobby, you know what I mean? Like that's their goal, you know. So you have to, you have to talk to them, like figure out their mindset, like where they are, and then really meet with them on what to do with them to keep them in the workplace. So now I'm like Googling the whole day how to help 20-year-olds find hobbies.
That's your hobby.
I recruit graduates from here, and I have incredibly low turnover.
Yeah.
So once I get them, I can keep them.
Yeah.
But it's just that initial
thing. They're seeing the light.
We do all the things that we say we will do. We have a fantastic culture.
Yeah.
Some of my staff do own homes. But I don't know, the hobby thing's got me intrigued.
Me and my partner got home last night and we're just like, wow. It was a new one. Yeah.
Sorry, this is a different topic. I think this is for Elena. You mentioned in your presentation about practice benchmarking to review your current practice performance. Could you explain what that means?
Yeah, benchmarking is basically comparing your practice against other practices, and there are a range of benchmarks available. Some of them are coming from the ATO, and they basically summarize certain data from other practices that report certain expenses, certain income, and types of expenses on their tax returns. And they basically they do certain statistic on this data, and they publish this data. There are also some benchmarkings available from private providers, and if you're interested, you can organize them as well. So they basically dissect, let's say, health practices by certain specialties. They could be GP practices, dental practices, sort of allied health practices. Some of them are more sort of summarized. Some of them are more distinctive, but you can get some insights about how other practices are running their practice and what sort of expenses. Like let's say you're interested in whether your wages and salary expense, for example, exceed certain benchmarks and thresholds. You can access this data to compare yourself, compare your type of practice, your size, your location against other practices as well. So sometimes it provides really good insights to be able to for you to be able to see whether your practice is whether it's normal or not, whether your results are normal, whether
Just tell me when to stop. All right. Now look, 2 questions in a way, and it may be a very much of a comment. Solo practices. And the question really is there a future for solo practice? Because when we have a look around, particularly in general practice land, we see declines in solo practitioners. So I'm keen to know, is there a future for solo practice? And if so, what does it look like?
Is it for me?
That's for the whole panel, right? So none of you are getting off scot-free, right? No collusion either, by the way. I'm keen to get all of you, right?
Interesting views, Dave, from a GP perspective. So what we're seeing in, and look, I can't speak for all allied health solo, but what we're seeing in GPs, new GP centres, is a lot of allied services provided, and they can be solo practitioners. So my answer, and I only see that growing, to be honest, because GPs run a very, Elena can talk to this, but they run a very low margin business model, and they rely on having those value add services to the same patients, and they basically rent out the space, but it's an attraction for their clients from a marketing perspective to have a one-stop health hub. And I only see that growing from where I sit, but it'd be good to get everyone else's. So the old style of solo practice, maybe not, where you've got a hole in the wall somewhere, but if you're part of a bigger complex, probably, but that's just my...
So you're into solo practice, from your point of view, on the way out?
As in their own little space?
Right. Yep. Solo practitioner working by themselves, that's on the way out, you reckon?
Unless you're a psychologist and you're online.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah, but see, online psychology is going through the roof. I think not. But, yeah.
Next, what do you think?
I think there is still definitely a room for solo practitioners, and a lot of my clients are actually solo practitioners, and they're running quite successful practices. And they're still experiencing growth phase, and some of them just do not want to grow any bigger, so they want to be sole practitioners. And I think we now see a lot of changes in the environment that actually help sole practitioners develop their practice. There are certain negative changes, but there are certain positive changes as well. So I think nowadays solo practitioners have a lot of flexibility how they want to work. If they want to rent a room somewhere, they can relocate easily. There's a lot of technology advancement that we actually discussed before. So I think, yeah, definitely there is room for solo practitioners, and they don't really have to have a lot of staff working for them, a lot of support staff. They can delegate these certain responsibilities to overseas staff, or they can pool certain resources with other practitioners and access this economy of scale, so to say. Yeah, they can definitely access that. So yeah, I think that they are here to stay. All right.
Yeah, I've got quite a bit of experience with that recently. Definitely working with a lot of kind of health hubs, medical hubs, that specialist hubs that are starting, and there's big spaces that are attracting a lot of individual practitioners to those. Even branding those spaces, I'm working on a lot of opportunities of those and how they're working. On the flip side, and this is where I get really excited, because I'm seeing a lot of individual practitioners that are doing some really interesting stuff in terms of flipping the narrative in terms of how they offer services, particularly online, with online programs. I'm working with a GP at the moment who's offering medically assisted weight loss in an online program format, and that is just gone incredibly well. I'm working with another GP at the moment who's niched down into helping teenagers with acne, so super niche, and they are doing some really innovative things to reach a wider audience. Also working with another GP that helps women with menopause in regional areas. So again, they're niching down in terms of who they serve, but there is some really innovative stuff happening in the online space on how they're helping people. So, and again, these are all solo practitioners with very little overhead. So it's exciting.
There are 3 great comments. I'm looking forward to the fourth one.
I'm going to disappoint you, I think.
I agree with everything they've said, and I've seen the same thing. Unfortunately, from a talent attraction point of view, I don't get to speak to too many solo practitioners looking to expand the practice. If anything, they will go get an ADN and join a larger group where they will get their referrals, you know, and get a split of the fee with all the infrastructure set up around them. And it's just an easier way for them to start. They might, you know, move away from that and go out on their own later, but it's, helping them establish, it's a great way to be part of a larger group and establish yourself, and then maybe move out eventually. So yeah.
Okay, please. Oh, you take it. I'll keep it all right.
No, just a comment in that area. I wonder how hard it is sometimes. I'm a private practitioner, and I like it that way because my values are my values, and the way I work is what I do, and people don't have to be confused about a practice and a practitioner. So I'm just kind of thinking one of the challenges with working for a bigger business is your values and the way you work may not be aligned with the way the practice works. And so that can be very confusing, I think, for the individual practitioners and for the business and for the clients. So I think there's a real benefit for me in working just for me. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Come on, I got you.
Just to follow on with that as well, I think it's really important to have solo practitioners, particularly in allied health. I guess what we're trying to do is we're trying to represent allied health and what we have to offer. And, you know, like working as a solo practitioner, you get to, you know, represent your flavour of whatever discipline you're doing. And I guess the point of the board is to go to GPs on the medical side and say, hey, this is what we have to offer. And I think these models of these mega clinics, they have incentives to have people in these big facilities for themselves. But the allied health, like we're trying to build a voice for ourselves, but when we get caught inside another space, we don't get the opportunities. We're still under another set of rules per se, or we're dictated to how we should work, but we're actually continually trying to represent ourselves and kind of get a voice out there because we add a lot of value to the community. And it's more important for us to represent ourselves than have another group or another discipline represent us to what they want us to represent as. So I hope it's solo practice don't die.
Thanks for the presentation. I just want to, I suppose more of a comment. I'm wondering with social media whether it actually helps protect a lot of people in, and I can't say this any nicer than saying time wasters. It can happen in any profession. So I've had family who spend a lot of time with people about building a house and then hours with someone familiar, and then they go off to a different architect. So I'm wondering whether you're finding the social media aspect is taking away that thing of people coming in for a little bit of advice, or you might be at a site somewhere doing something and then someone will come, you know, for their parent or relative or something, want a little bit of guidance on, you know, on things. You know, you kind of offer who they can see and they end up somewhere else. So I'm wondering if that's getting less of a problem because of social media can often help with that.
I think with social media and the way you communicate on social media, the key to it is to understand exactly who you want to be treating as a patient. So if you can all think of, I'm sure you could think of a small handful of patients who are your absolutely ideal patients. If you could clone those people and they're your advocates, they're the ones that bring in other patients, they're the ones that shout your name from the rooftops. If you could clone those 100 times, you'd be a pretty happy practice owner. So when you have those patients in mind in your marketing and social media, and you communicate to those patients, we start to niche down. And when we do that, we're not repelling people away, but we're attracting those people that we want to have within our practice. And often, I always have the conversations of, you've got to think of who your ideal patient is. And I often get the resistance, well, hang on a second, I will take anybody that comes through the door, we need new patients. And that's all very well and good, but you don't want the patients that are just going to come once and not carry through with your treatment plans that you're offering. You don't want the patients that don't have aligned values with what you're offering, or haven't kind of bought into the services that you provide and those types of things. So the more that you can almost pre-qualify those patients on social media, the higher quality patients you'll get. And that'll mean that they're better for your practice because they're the ones that are going to stick around. You'll enjoy treating them more. They're more like you. They share your values, and you'll get better quality at the end of the day. So yeah, absolutely. It definitely helps. Yeah. So you're almost pre-qualifying them and helping. I mean, like attracts like. And people will resonate with you, and people will be repelled by you on social media, and that's okay, because there's plenty of other people around. You can attract the people that you want to be treating. So I think that's really important. Yeah, it's a great comment.
I could give her a round. I've got more questions.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys have seen and coached and helped a lot of allied health and medical practitioners over the years. What have you seen have been maybe one or two characteristics of either the actual practice or the practitioners that own the practice that drive the decisions? What maybe one or two things have you sort of been maybe wowed by and think that's sort of what's driving the success of that practice or the culture of that practice? Just a couple of, maybe think back to some really amazing experiences you had with clients, not just saying on the books they had very successful practices, but you sort of walk in the door and things just seem to be happening in a way that was a little bit different.
I've probably got a great example. I can think of a particular practice that, in fact, Jerry and I kind of co-launched from a practice a bit outside perspective and a marketing perspective. And that practitioner was really looking to do something different. And they were so focused on creating a great patient experience that we brainstormed. They had focus groups. The little details that they have implemented in that practice, to me, I've done a lot of study about the Disney model. Has everyone here been to Disneyland? Have you been to Disneyland or no Disney? So when you go to Disneyland, if your child's having a tantrum, because it's a big day, right? There are cast members there. They're not kind of employees, they're cast members. It's all part of the show. But there are people there with stickers in their pocket that are ready to come out when your child's ready to throw themselves on the ground having a tantrum because it's been a big day. They are there to make sure it's a brilliant experience. The Disney model is about waiting in a queue for 120 minutes with small children and making it feel like you're not actually standing in a queue, because you're shuffling along, you're still moving, you're not sitting there. So it's a fascinating model if you kind of go online, and there's a whole Disney University about this whole thing, but it's about the experience. And this particular practitioner, went deep into that patient experience and really focused on everything. Very recently, I do a lot of their social media for them and was in a Facebook group recently. They charge high price for this, and they're not in a high socioeconomic area. And literally in the Facebook comments of a local Facebook group, there were people saying, I actually now have an account set aside so that they can go to this practice as an insurance policy. Now, that is like the ultimate, right? There are people in the community that are so amazed by this service. They've literally had children say, do you have birthday parties here at the practice? So, you know, that is really just taking that patient experience to the next level. That's one that stands in my mind that is amazing.
I might add to that is it is about the patient experience, but the other aspect of it that they've done extremely well and it was designed. So we worked with this practitioner for 2 years to try and find the right location. Michelle worked with them from a marketing perspective, but I would add to the patient experience is the culture they wanted to create. So they have been very, very deliberate about the type of people they employ, what their values are and what their values mean. So what does it mean for this practice? This value is very articulated. And interestingly, an interesting thing I found is their support staff and reception staff, they don't hire from the healthcare industry for support staff, they hire from hospitality. So when you turn up there, you are greeted like you're at a hotel. You have an experience that is just surpasses any other healthcare facility you've ever been to. So they have a concierge desk at the front. It's not a big elaborate reception area, but it's the journey right from that greeting through to the music that's playing, the diffusers that are going. So yes, we did an amazing fit out, obviously, but it's more than just what we did for them. It's those other things that they put in place, and it's right from, I would say it's the people. Comes back to a people-centric practice.
I agree with everything that Michelle and Jerry have said, but I would like to add that because allied health services and also GP services is very, very interpersonal. So I guess what patients do appreciate is when the practitioner really cares about them and then when they show this care. So I have a lot of amazing clients who are really that interpersonal kind of people and who have amazing patients, and they have repeat patients. The patients recommend these practitioners to their friends. They have this referral network. These people are not necessarily the most financially astute, but they don't have to be. They have to be a good practitioner. They have to really care for their patients.
Experience, one of the examples would be an owner-operated clinic, and not solo, so you've got a couple of practitioners in there, kind of starting to delegate. So understanding their strengths and finding those gaps and weaknesses and realizing that they can't do everything. So introducing a buffer, introducing a layer of management. They don't have to be called a practice manager, but just somebody who can take on the additional tasks to allow for smooth running of the practice. Be a collection point for concerns and issues, things you can't sort out as you're going during the day consulting your own patients. So it's okay to start when it's just you and you're trying to manage everything, but as you're growing, I think identifying where you need help and then acting on that will help turn around that clinic and help it sort of on its path to growth sooner rather than later. Yeah.
That's lovely. Brenda, I've got another question.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, you go for it.
One thing that we hear a lot from practitioners is that deep fundamental sense of isolation that they feel quite disconnected in a way from their colleagues and from their work that they're doing. There's this deep sense of loneliness. I think has been exacerbated like COVID and all those other kinds of things. My question back to you actually, John, is where can allied health practitioners actually go to get that sort of collegial type support? And you know, that one-on-one, you're too busy in a practice because you can't have time to talk to your colleague because you're flat out. We hear it from GPs, I hear it from allied health. It's been really, really consistent. It's almost like you're saying, an epidemic of loneliness amongst healthcare providers.
Yeah, thanks for asking, Brendan, actually, because I think during COVID, I'll just speak personally, I felt that isolation because I was isolated as well as all the other practitioners in Australia and around the world. And actually what helped with my particular sort of situation was I had my wife, my beautiful wife, Susie, she's a clinical psychologist, we could still talk shop. But apart from that, there wasn't really much talking shop. So for me, actually, it was reaching out, being a bit sort of on the forefoot and thinking, I need to actually get into communication with other health practitioners. I didn't know what's going on. And it was actually emails from CESPN that came through. And actually, it was Peggy, because you were the chair of CESAN at the time, Central Eastern Sydney Allied Health Network. And I think I just finished my PhD, and then your email came through, which was about your AGM. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do. I'll just attend the AGM. That'll be a good first step. And then from attending the AGM, I sort of became aware of the Primary Health Network. And actually, it's a network of organisations around Australia, and they do really good things for the community. For GPs, predominantly at the time was my mindset, but allied health, and it emerged over the last 2 years with leadership from Brendan, Natalie, and the PHN here, is they saw the importance of allied health, the need for the allied health in the community, not just servicing the GP networks. So I think for me, the break in isolation was I had to sort of just step out of that and see what else was available. My particular profession is probably a little bit isolated in the sense that I'm a chiropractor. We don't have access to public health systems and local health districts. So when we graduate with a degree, and our real only place to practice is in private practice. We can't really practice in a community centre or a hospital, and that would have been fantastic. I would have loved that experience. So for chiropractors, for us, it was really, you graduate, okay, where am I going to find a practice? I'll go work with Roger, he's got a practice, or with Leo, he's got a practice. Let's see how that goes. But my intention is, I want to have my practice one day. So I think for me personally, when I started the practice, it was just open the doors, see what happens, and good things happen, thankfully. But I think us as allied professionals, we can get sort of stuck and insulated and isolated in our own sort of professional networks. And I had a conversation with a colleague earlier this week, and he said, because I asked him, invited him along, and he didn't make it here tonight, but he will. He'll become a member of Allied Health Network, he said. He said, what's the PHN? What do they do? I said, listen, you got to start getting out there. Don't just attend seminars just for your profession. Attend seminars that are for allied health. Attend seminars for healthcare. Yeah. So in terms of the loneliness issue, I think solo practitioners, they can become really isolated, but with the assistance of experts and colleagues from different and dispersed health fields, you can become actually quite open-minded and try new things. So yeah, there's an antidote for it, which is just step out.
John, without plugging too much, mention the coffee catch-ups as a concept.
Oh yeah, we organised coffee catch-ups for CESAN, for the Allied Health Network. We had a few in Leichhardt, a few come along to Leichhardt. Carleen held one in the city, in the CBD. We're going to continue to hold those, and we'd really love you as members of CESAN to come along. Even if you're not members of CESAN, we still love you to come along and just chat about what's going on in healthcare, and you know, we all just learn from each other. There's always something to learn.
Designed as an actual antidote to what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, we're really pleased to support them because I think they're really, really crucial. But part of our allied health strategy that we've got. So you know, publicise it, guys. Really get in on it, right?
Just a comment on that. Like, I'm a solo practitioner, and I do more mobile visits, so I visit everybody in their homes. or walk and talk, etc. But I have a few psychologist friends that will just text each other, you know, every now and again. Hey, hope you're having a good day. You know, give me a call if you need anything. And we do that just pretty regularly. And I think it's really helpful just to have maybe one or two colleagues that doesn't have to be anything big. It's just checking in, make sure everything's good. And I think that's helpful to me.
But I think the benefit of, like the example, the coffee catch-ups, it's meant to be cross-disciplinary. I mean, it's great to have other psychologists here, but the idea is you should be talking to non-psychologists. Same issues.
Because there would be synergies across.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and a different perspective on problem solving. That's what I found when we were. I have a question. Can we?
Might be the last question because we're on
Okay.
8:30.
I'm just curious to know how things have changed since COVID in terms of, I suppose, what practice owners, maybe those that are setting up, how, you know, what they're looking, what's changed in terms of what they're taking into account. Just curious.
Yeah. So everyone would remember when COVID first hit, we saw the bigger plastic screens and everything had to be sort of makeshift. And we were, as designers, we thought, okay, how are we going to make these things look half decent? They're going to be here to stay. From one perspective, I think most of the change from a COVID perspective has come down to more procedural. I mean, any of you practice owners in the room, you know, it's the processes around cleaning and all that sort of stuff. From an actual design perspective, I wouldn't say there's a lot. I would just say it's probably not so much COVID, it's more about building costs have gone so much. So just to give you, I mean, everyone knows interest rates have almost doubled, building costs have gone up by 20 to 30%. So the onus is now on how can we get the most out of this space from a revenue generation point of view without jeopardising the patient or team experience. So I suppose that's probably the biggest shift we're seeing is sometimes it's less space. And I think going back to software, even like, I know you guys put Allied hot dog, do the Allied community use hot dog so much? Yeah, so GP does a lot. But software like that, where people can, a patient booking system, where we've seen a reduction in waiting rooms, and I think that's an interesting one. The size of waiting rooms, we thought when COVID hit that we'd have to make them bigger. But now with technology, people can go run and grab a coffee, they get notified when their practitioner's ready. So I think it's about a reduction of real estate is probably the biggest shift we've seen.
From my perspective, I saw this shift back and forwards when interest rate came down and everyone was trying to get loans and banks and finance providers were handing out all those loans, trying to entice practitioners to get something, but now interest rates jumped and it's more challenging to, I guess, for the practitioners to keep up with the increasing costs. I guess I agree with Jerry Kennard trying to reduce the space in everyone. We also see shifts about investing in technology. So I think when people go into private practice, they get information from different sources and they're more informed before they actually jump into decisions.
I would just say that there's a lot of new practices opening right now. I think they've probably held back. I did definitely launch practices during COVID, and a couple of dental practices that was tough for them. They were halfway through the build, and it was tough. But there is a lot of practices opening now. GPs, dentists, allied health.
It hasn't dampened the appetite. I think it's just more. How do we get a ROI, a return on investment, and build it into the business plan?
Same like what Michelle said. If they're not opening, they're back into growth. So they're back into increasing their team sizes. Obviously, not a lot of people were presenting in person during COVID. For about 2 years, there was a bit of a lull in terms of primary healthcare recruitment. But it's definitely picking up again, and everyone's looking to bring back those patients to the clinic. There's been movement as well. So a lot of people relocated. So some states have lost practitioners and they've gone to Queensland. So they're needing to backfill them, and yeah, definitely recruitment is back up and happening again.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, if we just thank our presenters for tonight.